Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Alexis Ware. In this week's news, blindness won't stop man from running half marathon. Startup businesses award $2,500 grants, and a big change at Oxford Leader.
Stay tuned. Learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. From a valid source, OCTV News was made aware on October 18th that C.J. Carnacchio, employed by Oxford Leader News, has submitted his resignation. Carnacchio, who is a well-known Oxford resident and outspoken award-winning reporter and journalist, held a commanding position at the Oxford Leader for over 20 years. He has accepted a position with the Oxford Township to develop search grant opportunities and communications. Full details about this story will be reported by future news releases. See the complete story in an upcoming Oxford Leader newspaper. From all the staff and management at OCTV, we wish CJ the very best in the future.
Oxford Township trustee Jack Curtis made it clear at a recent Oxford Township meeting he's not going to support applying for a $1 million state brownfield grant. The grant would fund the cleanup of lead contamination at a proposed House of Providence foster care center. Curtis said the township would assume all liability and responsibilities during the process. Curtis also does not support such a large amount of public money being used on one property when there are many areas in the state having a greater need for those funds. It is expected the entire Oxford Township Board will vote on the issue at Oxford Township's Board of Trustee meeting, scheduled to be held on November 20th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
A proposed 3-page ordinance allowing residents to keep chickens will undergo a few more tweaks before it faces final vote. After discussing issues and listening to a warning from the village's code enforcement officer, Dan Durham, council members voted 4-1 to set the second reading of the proposed ordinance aside until the next Village of Oxford meeting takes place. Under the potential ordinance, only residents living in detached single-family homes would be allowed to have up to 4 chickens for personal use only. Residents would be permitted to have hens and no roosters. An annual permit from the village will be required.
2 requests and 2 rejections is the way it went for Legacy 925 at the last week's Oxford Township Board meeting. Jordan Knutson is operating officer for the 200,000 square feet building on M24. He approached the board with requests for more time to be in compliance with the township ordinance. Specifically, Knutson asked township officials to give Legacy 925 until May 15, 2020 to complete all work necessary to be in compliance with the property's approval final state site plan. He also asked the township to allow Legacy 925 to continue using its outdoor patio through December 31st. Back in June, officials granted temporary permission to use the patio. The township board turned down both requests by 7-0 votes. Officials want all of the work completed as required by the township and previously promised by the applicant.
Oxford officials made decisions saving sewer customers in the township and village more than $10,000. Rather than making 6 years worth of bond payments, debt payments, the township board and village council both voted to prepay their full portions of an estimated $100 million towards the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor Drain Project. Township officials agreed to prepay over $140,000 for the project, which will save their sewer customers over $7,000 in bond cost and interest. Sewage from township and village users flows through the Oxford-Macomb Interceptor Drain on its way to Detroit, where it's treated. Approximately $88 million of the project will be spent on the rehabilitating the sewage pumping station in Detroit. The project's remaining $12 million will be spent on the acquisition and assumption of the capital improvement and day-to-day maintenance responsibilities of these wastewater facilities.
Oxford Township officials last week approved more than $800,000 for the expansion of municipalities' water and sewer systems. In a 6-0 vote, the Township Board allotted over $700,000 from the sewer fund for the next year's construction of the sewer line along M24. Officials also voted 6-0 to authorize Township Engineer Jim Sharp to design a water main to extend along Drainer Road starting at M24 near 49-unit residential development soon to be built. The section of pipe will allow the township to loop its water system, allowing greater reliability.
2 downtown Oxford businesses were awarded grants last week. Homegrown Brewing Company and Hawaiian Shave Ice and Ice Cream will receive $2,500 from the Genesis Credit Union. The grants are from the Spirit of Main Street Micro Business Startup Grant Program. The grant program is a partnership between Genesis and Credit Union and Main Street, Oakland County. Its purpose is to support the attraction, retention, and growth of small businesses in the county's historic downtowns and commercial corridors. Start-up businesses in existence for 5 years or less and looking to expand into markets are eligible to receive grants of up to $2,500. Applicants must provide a minimum dollar-for-dollar match, so they can have skin in the game. According to MSOC, Coordinator John Bry, there were 11 applicants in this round and 7 grants were awarded.
Just the Scotch Productions LLC, located in Columbus, Ohio, has set a date for their 4th screening of their new feature film, Kadia, The World Within. The screening date is Sunday, October 20th at 6:30 at Lake Point Community Church in the Oxford Township. A short question and answer period will follow the showing. Tickets are free. More details, search Facebook Kadia Film.
Heroes can come from anywhere, but for Lakeville Elementary, these heroes came from Lowe's. Lowe's has a company-wide program called Lowe's Heroes. This program gives employees the opportunity to support and improve their community through different projects in the hopes of extending a hand and leaving a lasting impact. On October 1st, Rochester store manager Ron Carolus and his team met at Lakeville and began creating a rock garden in front of the school. They installed a peace pole, attached new soccer and basketball nets, painted games like Foursquare on the cement, and installed 4 new picnic tables. Since some community members utilize the playground on the weekends, they will benefit from Lowe's generosity as well. Great job, support.
On Tuesday morning, Lynn Sutphin, Public Information Officer for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, confirmed that Beaumont is appealing the state's September 30th decision to reject their application to build a new hospital in Oxford. Beaumont released a statement saying they are committed to providing health care in Oxford, and to move forward, they have secured a land purchase agreement. When approved, they say they're eager to serve the community.
Well, I'd like to talk about CJ. You know,
Yeah.
he has left a job that he's been in for over 20 years, and I can say he's a pronounced individual in the community. You see him
Absolutely.
everywhere, he's doing reporting. And he's won all kinds of awards. I mean, he has at least 20, 30, 40 awards. I don't know what the count is.
Yes, too many to count.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's going to do great in whatever position that what's his position that he's going to?
Yeah, he's going to be a grant writer.
Okay.
In other words, he's going to provide various information research for grants and what are available. What's been unfortunate is that the township and local governments have lost countless amount of money because don't have the resources to go after those grants. So it's kind of tailored after what Orion Township is doing. They hired a grant writer last year, I think it was, or the year before, and they've been able to generate several $1 million within their community just by finding these grants. So this individual...
What better person than Chris?
Yeah, CJ will be pretty important, you know, by the time this is all finished and said and done.
Yeah.
So, and he's an individual that doesn't speak up, so it could be a problem. No, just kidding. No, he's a very outspoken individual. He speaks his mind. But he's going to now be under the control, I think, of the trustees and the board. So I don't know exactly who he's going to report to, probably the clerk more than likely, or the treasurer, Ferrari. But no, we wish him the very best.
Absolutely.
You know, and also his wife, Connie. So we shall see what happens in the future, but I'm sure that it'll be an interesting progress for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what's going on.
All right. Well, that's it for Oxford News this week. If you'd like to learn more about these stories and others, you can pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader, or better yet, you can catch us on our website at OCCTV.org, on YouTube, and of course, your regular cable channel Spectrum 191 and AT&T Channel 99.
Coming up soon, OCTV's very own Cody Wright with school sports and schooling around with none other than Alexis Ware, and also, let's not forget, school news. You know,
Yeah.
one after the other, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And you won't want to miss Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kenny.
I'm Alexis Ware. Thanks for watching Oxford News this week.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, the world's fastest ant can run at almost 1 meter per second, covering more than 100 times its own body length in that time. The Saharan silver ant has one of the most extreme lifestyles of any insect. It lives in the Sahara Desert, where the ground regularly reaches temperatures of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Most animals find shelter at the hottest times of day, but this is when the Saharan silver ants venture outside. In a furious burst of activity that may be as short as 10 minutes, they scavenge for insects and other small animals that have fallen victim to the heat. It has been clear since the 1980s that they run very fast, says Sarah Pfeffer at University in Germany. Desert ant researchers Rutger Wiener reported in 1983 they might reach 1 meter per second, but this figure has been doubted ever since. Pfeffer and her colleagues have now measured how fast the silver ants run using high-speed video. It turns out they can reach 85.5 centimeters per second, which is pretty close to Werner's estimate. Close examination of the video reveals several hints about how the ants manage this. First, their legs are unusually short for desert ants, which normally have long legs to keep their bodies away from the hot ground. The short legs allow the Saharan silver ants to take over 40 steps per second. Second, their legs move in an unusual way. Like most insects, ants move 3 of their 6 legs at a time. However, most insects don't move all 3 precisely simultaneously. It's a very jerky movement if you do that, says Pfeffer. The Saharan silver ants break this rule with legs almost synchronous. We think this might help them with the sandy substrate, says Pfeffer, perhaps ensuring that their feet don't sink into the sand and slow them down. The Sahara silver ants have other remarkable abilities. In particular, they are extremely heat tolerant, thanks in part to special silvery hairs that protect them. Wow. In our next story, a trip to hospital can play havoc with your gut bacteria. People treated for several days in an intensive unit had their stomachs quickly colonized by harmful pathogens, tests show. Healthier gut microbes were pushed out, a shift that may have long-term effects after someone is discharged. Heavy use of broad-spectrum antibiotics, feeding people through a tube, and using a ventilator to help them breathe could all contribute to the effects, say the team who carried out the study. It's quite disconcerting, says Mark Palin, a microbial genomics researcher at Quadram Institute in the UK who led the research. I was quite surprised, he said. I mean, I suspected that something like this was going on, but when I was quite taken aback by the scale of the changes. To assess the impact of the intensive care treatment on the gut microbiome, the team tracked 24 people admitted for trauma, heart attacks, cancer, and other emergencies to Queen Elizabeth Hospital in the UK over a 10-month period. Many of those admitted were aged between 25 and 85, were unconscious or sedated. After getting permission from family members, the scientists took stool samples from these individuals. Using a technique called shotgun metagenomics, they extracted and sequenced DNA from the samples to identify which microbes were present and how that changed over the course of treatment. 2/3 of the patients showed a marked reduction in microbial diversity at some stage during their stay. The biggest changes were associated with intravenous use of the antibiotic meropenem. The gut is normally home to a rich and versatile set of microorganisms, says Palin. Whereas in these patients, we are seeing all that diversity collapsing down to domination of the gut bacteria by a single organism occurring at a very high abundance. Most frequently, the researchers found that patients' guts were dominated by Enterococcus faecium, a common bacterial pathogen. That is a problem because this microbe can spread from the gut and damage other parts of the body, including the lungs. If it reaches the bloodstream, it can be fatal. Particularly worrying, says Palin, is that the study found evidence of a single strain of E. faecium spreading between 3 people. It is a small number of patients to draw conclusions from, but the results align with other studies, says Joost Versika at the Academic Medical Center in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. While the priority in intensive care is always to save lives, Versinga says medics could do more to minimize disruption to gut bacteria. If you need to give antibiotics, then give them. But think about which antibiotic and for how long if you can stop earlier. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Coming up this Tuesday, October 22nd, Brain Balance will be hosting one of their many events, this time on the Pollyant Trail as well as at Oxford Public Library. They'll be bringing a bat specialist to Oxford Public Library to show students and their families a presentation on a bat's life and talk about some of the myths and facts that deal with them. The first presentation does start at Oxford Public Library before moving out to the Pollyant Trail to use echolocation devices to hear the sounds bats make. Afterwards, everyone will be rewarded with Yates cider and donuts. Registration is required to attend the event. If interested, RSVP with Brain Balance at 248-716-5400. Spots are filling quickly, so act soon. That night, you also don't want your seniors to miss out. At Oxford High School, they'll be hosting a FAFSA night starting at 6:30. Teachers and administration will be helping students fill out forms and teach them what things to put on there. Wednesday, OHS has their band Orama at 6:30 in the Performing Arts Center, and we'll be doing the second session at Splash Zone here in Oxford, located at the Legacy 925 Center. It's a new segment OCTV is doing to teach people the basics of swimming and swimming safety. To see the first episode of Session 1, look at our Facebook and YouTube pages at Oxford Community Television. If you have a horse and are looking for a little getaway, Addison Oaks County Park are hosting an equestrian camping night on the 24th. That day, Bridges High School is also having an OK to Say presentation starting at 11:30. Friday, October 25th, Kingsbury Country Day School is putting on one of their many hungry library lunches as well as their Fall Earth Walk earlier that morning. Daniel Axford has a PTO trunk or treat event. Time is still being determined. And keeping up with Halloween spirit, Lakeville Elementary has a fall festival haunted house at 6. It's open to the public and admission is free. Moving into weekend news, OHS is hosting a SATs event at 7:30. Register at satstudent.org, and Lakeville's annual haunted house continues. You certainly don't want to miss any of those events or the Dine with a Hero event happening on November 6th at 5 p.m. This is the kickoff fundraiser for Shop with a Hero happening closer to the holidays at our local Meijer. There's more family events coming up as the weather gets cooler and the holiday draws nearer. Visit MichiganFallFestival.com to see events near you coming up soon. And don't forget to pay a visit to Farmer Nate out at Upland Hills Farm for their Fall Harvest Festival happening every weekend this month on Saturdays and Sundays. Hope you all can get out and enjoy some of this fall pre-winter weather. But until next time, I'm Alexis Ware.
What's going on, Wildcat fans? Cody Wright back here with this week's sports report. It's getting close to the end of our fall sports season, but we're just not quite there yet. Let's take a look at how some of these teams are either wrapping up their seasons or how they're keeping it going. First off, the boys football team had a tough game on the road coming off of their 3-week stay playing at home. The boys took on Southfield AT&T on the road and took a tough loss 27-0. It has been a very tough season, but this is just a cycle every program goes through. You have up years and down years. We have the seasons to come on our side. Up next, the boys do return home to take on West Bloomfield. It's going to be a very tough game. West Bloomfield is 6-1 this season and sits at the top of the OAA Red Division. Oxford's overall record right now sits at 1-6 and 1-4 in OAA play. On the flip side, though, the boys and girls cross-country teams did very well at the Oxford Invitational at Oxford Hills Golf Course. It was a 15-team event, which means there was a lot of competition. However, that was no match for our Wildcat athletes. The girls took first place over the meet with an 88 score, and the boys finished in third with an 87 score. Also, the girls swim team is still undefeated in the league after beating the Troy Colts 97-89 in a close and very tough meet that was taking place here at home. Head coach Jackie Rank pointed out that it took a team effort to get this victory. Next, the girls will take on the Berkeley Bears in their final home meet of the season. The girls are 7-1 overall and 5-0 in OAA play. Also, the boys tennis team ended their season at the regional level, which is nothing to hang your head about. The MHSAA tournament was at Clarkson High School with 8 teams competing. The boys took 6, which doesn't pass them on to states, but it was a great run. Taking first place in the tournament was Bloomfield Hills with 20 points, and following was Clarkson with 15 and Rochester with 12. These 3 schools will now move on to the states. Oxford's season record ended at 11-2-1. And last but not least, the equestrian team's 20th consecutive trip to states didn't pan out the way they hoped. They finished 6th in the state. However, this put into perspective of how hard even it is to make it to that level. This team truly has accomplished a lot, and the program overall has an outstanding reputation. By the end of the competition at the Midland County Fairgrounds, the team ended with 153 points in Division B, which consisted of 11 schools. It was a great season, and we certainly look forward to this program's future. It certainly is bright. Anyhow, that's all for this week's report. For any more info on these events and more, go to oxfordathletics.org. There's plenty of game breakdowns, statistics, and more all right there for you to check out. Once again, that is oxfordathletics.org. While you're at it, might as well check us out at OCCTV.org. That is all of our coverage of these events and more can be found on our YouTube page, which you can access through that website. Once again, that is OCCTV.org. And that's all for me this week. I want to thank you all for watching and remind you all to tune in next time. But until then, I'm Cody Wright. Go Wildcats.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, UAW leaders on October 17th voted to extend the union's national strike against General Motors, then in its 32nd day, until members ratify a tentative agreement. Following a 6.5-hour meeting of the UAW's GM National Council, union spokesman Brian Rothenberg said the council voted to send the deal to ratification and to keep members on picket lines until the deal is ratified. He said informational meetings and voting will begin on Saturday, and the process should be completed by October 25th. The union and automaker on October 16th reached a tentative agreement that includes a total $9 billion in investment by GM, a commitment to keep open the Detroit Hamtramck assembly plant, and a path for temporary workers to gain full-time status, among other gains. Union members can ratify the deal with a simple majority of members voting in favor. Prolonging the strike by another week means $14 million more in lost wages for workers, $20 million in lost wages for supplier employees who continue to be laid off, and $400 million in losses for GM, according to the Anderson Economic Group, a consulting firm in East Lansing, Michigan. Through bonuses and wage increases, GM did everything they could with the money. Patrick Anderson, CEO of the firm, told Automotive News they absolutely needed the flexibility to close plants they can't possibly fill. I'm not surprised. That's a bitter pill to swallow for the UAW, he said. The UAW's tentative agreement with GM would give full-time hourly workers a signing bonus of $11,000, provide wage or lump sum pay increases of at least 3% annually, and allow new hires to reach top wages in 4 years instead of 8, according to a summary of the deal provided by the union. During the October 16th meeting, UAW leaders were going through the contract summary page by page with considerable debate about job security and 3 plants slated for closure, a person with knowledge of the meeting told Automotive News. The This year's summary does not contain any details about plant investments or product commitments GM is making. Union officials also raised concerns about their members going back to work, while UAW represented janitorial workers remain on strike against GM, a person familiar with the matter said. The union was still negotiating with Aramark, the vendor that employs those workers, earlier in the day, but reached a temporary agreement with the company by October 16th. Details about the tentative deal with Aramark workers were not immediately available, and union officials earlier were concerned about asking rank and file to cross their own union's picket lines, the person said. The tentative agreement with GM, if ratified, would result in all current workers earning at least $32.32 an hour by September of 2023. Temporary workers would have a path to becoming full-time employees, the summary said. Profit-sharing payouts would no longer be capped at $12,000 annually, though the formula for calculating them would not change. Health care coverage also is unchanged. GM will contribute $1,000 to the pensions of workers hired prior to 2007 who are still eligible for that benefit, and is offering $60,000 bonuses to up to 2,060 workers eligible for retirement who leave the company in January or February. Part of the agreement also includes dissolving the union and automakers' jointly run training center. The building that houses the UAW GM Training Center in Detroit will be sold, and the company will provide a building for joint activities and training. Funds remaining from dissolving the training center and building sale will be used for going forward with joint activities, the union memo said. Well, and over at Volkswagen gave a glimpse of the new generation Golf while confirming that the car would be ready to launch in Europe later this year. The Golf will arrive in its first markets in December, the company said. The sketches show that Golf will have a wider bumper and narrower headlight design that stretches across the front end. The Golf is expected to have a longer wheelbase to create more interior space. VW executives say the Golf will have a fully digital cockpit as well as advanced driver assistant features and online-based functions and services. It will also have a 48-volt mild hybrid offered for the first time. The range on the Golf plug-in hybrid should increase to 50 miles from 30 miles. VW Group CEO Herbert Diess has instructed managers at an internal meeting this summer that the vehicle must arrive in European showroom by year-end. The Golf is Europe's best-selling car and among VW brand's most popular models worldwide. The Golf will be revealed on October 24th for European markets. Well, that's it for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways.
We here at OCTV cover the local events and government meetings of Oxford, Addison, and Leonard. We also produce and edit programs for you viewers out there. With the help of our great new equipment and our technical directors, we write, produce, and broadcast our local news for you. OCTV and its communities make a great team. Catch us anytime on YouTube. Go to Oxford Community Television YouTube. Do you love local sports? Whether it's Oxford High School or Parks and Rec, you can buy copies of each game. To purchase your copy, call us at 248-628-9658 or give us an email at manager@occtv.org or talk to us at the next game. Hopefully we'll see you there.